Is your track memorable? That's the question that we're going to try to answer today. Obviously, doing this kind of YouTube stuff and the live streaming, I get a lot of tracks sent to me for feedback, especially Psytrance ones, because that's obviously what my community is built around. And most of the times when I get a track, I would say that it's not really memorable. Like, everything is there. A lot of people know how to make a kick and bass that sounds really good, and not a lot of people know how to do sound design that works really well. But there isn't a lot of memorability, and I'm trying to kind of teach you that as well, because it's really useful to have a memorable track, so that when people like your track, when they listen to it in the club or on a mixtape or on a live event or whenever, they'll go out and try to find it because they know what it sounds like, right? You cannot really go look for a track that isn't really memorable. So today I'm going to show you a few things that I'm trying to do to make my track sound a little bit more memorable throughout like the whole track. And I'll show two different projects, one that is still in the beginning, so there's a lot of work still to do, but the other one is a little bit more done. And if you look at my streams and you know my streams, then you know both of these tracks and how they were produced, because I produced both of them mostly on stream. But yeah, that's going to be what we're going to dive into today. So let's get right into that. All right, so memorability of a track, as I said, is very important, but it's also really hard concept to explain, because we all like different things. We all like different elements of a track, and one person might like, the intro pad sounds that you have in a track, while another person might really find your bass arrangement to be unique and memorable. So having something in there for everyone is always a good idea. And that gives me to the very first point, and that's always to kind of overdo the memorable aspects of it. You don't want your track to rely on like one very special element that's really, grabbing the attention and that does everything in terms of memorability and no other elements in the track. So here I'm going to show you an example, which is this flute sound that we have in here. It's a really distinct flute sound, and it really sits well in terms of the mix, but it's really the only thing right now in the track that makes it very memorable. Other than the vocals, which unfortunately because of license reasons, I've turned off the main vocals for this one. So yeah, you can really, as an example, you can really hear how we only really have this one element in there that makes this track memorable. And that there isn't anything else that really drives your attention. There isn't anything that really grabs it in a way that makes you remember this particular piece of music. So you can hear that, yes, it is a nice track and it's a good track to listen to. But if you were to ask me which main elements were in the track, and I think a lot of people would agree here, then the only real element that you can think about right now is that flute sound. And there isn't anything else that really stands out and grabs your attention. Obviously, the vocals in this case, for this example, as well as just for licensing reasons, are excluded there. But the main idea of memorability is that you want each element or each segment of the track to have its own memorable part, right? So here for the intro and the very first parts of the drop, you might see that it's this flute sound, and then here we kind of lose it. So in this case, this is the main like synth part of it. It isn't really memorable. All the synths that sit in here have already been done, and a lot of people have executed them and in a much better way. So now it's, for me, is the task to really find a synth sound or a new thing that works in this track and makes this piece memorable, as well as this part here. and then this part as well here. So I'm going to let you listen to those parts as well. And then you can kind of hear that it doesn't really have the kind of magic that this flute sound have, that you can really, distinguish even if you were to just listen to that particular sound. All right, so here we have the same kind of problem. Well, granted, this is not finished yet, this part, but you can hear that it's just an acid lead, and I hear lots of people that already have used this. So being able to stand out with an acid lead sound, you have to do something really special here. And with just this sound, that's not going to happen. So you need something memorable in this part of the track as well that really drives it home, because you never know when in a live set your track might be played. A DJ might decide to start playing your track right here and skip over all these flute sounds and the vocals that sit in here that makes this part of your track memorable. So what happens then is that once it's the track starts to play here, and you don't have any of these elements here, you don't have any of those theming elements in the rest of your track, it's just going to sound like a generic psytrance track, and nobody's going to look for it when they get home from the club. You want people who are interested in your music and who hear your music for the first time, you want them to be blown away, and you want them to go look for your track online when they get home the day after in a club, or when they hear it on the live set, they'll go around and chat and ask for like, oh, which track is this? I want to add this to my playlist. That's how you start building up a fan base. And the best way to do that is by having something that is recognizable and that's distinguishable and that's unique and that is memorable is a good word for that. So here, as an example, this really doesn't work for that. You can hear that this is something that has been done loads and loads of times. And the real idea, the real theme of this part of the track, these 16 bars, still needs to be developed. So you hear it works in terms of psytrance and it works in terms of danceability. It's danceable and the mix works well, and it's technically speaking, it's a good psytrance track, but it's not something you're going to remember if you're dancing in the club. And that's really something you should be aiming for, right? If you really want to expand your fan base and if you really want your music to become a little bit more recognized, a little bit more views, what you want for your music to be is also you need people to search for it once they get back home from the club. It's not just about getting it played in the club, but also what's going to happen after, because that's really where the numbers come from. Your view count isn't going to go up by 500 if you have 500 people in a club listening to your music and then nobody goes looking for it because they don't recognize it or they don't like it or whatever. So theming is a really cool way to do that. And one of the best ways of theming I'm going to show you is in a different project. So let's actually hop over to that project as well, and we'll explore a few of the theming elements of that project as well. All right, so this is going to be the opening track for my new album that I'm working on. And this is really where I experimented a lot more with like melodic theming. So what that means is that you have a melody that really works and that really is recognizable. So let's say, let's take a very popular track in rock music, which is Smoke Underwater. Everybody knows that intro guitar riff, right? If you play the very first few notes of that, I'm not going to do that because of copyright reasons, obviously. But if you play those first, if you play that melodic line, everybody's going to instantly recognize it. And that's built kind of almost like a special kind of following around the track, that people always know the track and always love the track. And that's really where you want to aim for if you're a musician. Obviously, you want to get people to really almost kind of as a cult, in a sense, follow your track and follow what you do with your track. And that's really one way you can do that is through melody, because melody is such a recognizable thing. So what I've tried to do here is have this melody line that sits in this track and have that come back every now and again to really hammer it down and give you this form of repetition. So here that is. I'll just play that part of it, and then I'll also talk a little bit about how the vocals add to the memorability and to the searchability of your track. So we just have this one melody that is repeating, and then I'm constantly adding extra melodies on top of it, but it's always revolved around this 4-bar idea here. You can hear how the rest of the track is very repetitive, but the only real thing that's evolving and is constantly changing while still being focused around the same melodic idea of 4 bars is that melody line here. So then the track starts to play, and then we have the next segment here, and we have a little drop part, and then it just comes back. So it's another reminder of that same melody, and we have the same kind of building up idea where we have the same melody being played here, and then it gets added with that other melody line, that second one, and here I have another version of it where it's repeating. Right, so all of that makes it very memorable, and you can see that I've used that at least 3 times in the track now, but this track probably will have it at least 2 more times. Actually, in some other spots I have just the violin part here, and it's playing the same kind of counter melody as we have here. So you can see this counter melody of 3 notes is the same counter melody that we used against that main melody here. That's these 3 notes going down in the same exact style. So here we have that again, and it's a little bit filtered. We can hear it coming in, and that again reminds us of the same melodic idea, the same theme. And it's actually not the only melodic theme that's in this track. There's, if you watch this on stream, you probably know about the vocal part. That's a fan favorite of this track, is the vocal line that I have here. This is another idea where we're just using a very simple like voice line, but which is very recognizable. So this is it. And that repeats a few times, and I'm going to skip forward here to not make the video too long. But here you have another vocal line that's just a slight bit different, it just goes up a little bit more. So that's like the main vocal line here, and that's really what helps it's another memorable part, right? So if you hear this vocal line now, if you hear that exact sound, even if it's just soloed, you're going to think of the track that you just heard, even in the long-term future, right? You're going to recognize this. Maybe even when my album comes out, you'll recognize this vocal line from this tutorial that you're watching right now. You're gonna be like, I've heard that before. Because it's a simple but effective melodic idea, and this is something that you should try to strive for even in psytrance. Even though it's not a melodic genre, you still should be able to incorporate melody in such a way that you can at least get that recognizable theme out there. So another thing that's worked really well and that I can actually show in this project is like vocals, spoken vocals or sung vocals or whatever. So this, what vocals allow you to do is it allows you to very easily connect the title of the track to the track itself, right? So that helps searchability. And what that means is that if I play my track you're going to really give the people the idea of what they need to search for to find your track. So let's say they're in the club, they know they're watching my live set because I might be playing there, and they hear this the following vocal line.
The Awakening.
They know exactly what they need to search for to find this track. They know the track is probably called The Awakening, and that only works because it's always in there. So the Awakening is always playing a part in this track, right? So right here in the intro we have it. It's a little bit hard to hear, but it's still in there. And then we have The Awakening in here, and then this whole vocal idea resolves to The Awakening.
The Awakening.
And then we have more of The Awakening just on its own, sitting throughout the track here and there. And obviously the project isn't finished, so I might add even more of those. And what that vocal line allows you to do is it really allows you to connect your title of your track, so what people need to search for to find your track, with the track itself, with the actual audio file that is your music. And with those two things, if you execute those two things right, you should have a track that is both memorable, so easy to remember, and easy to distinguish from other Psytrance tracks, as well as easily findable. And what those two things allows you to do is, when your track gets played in the club, as I said, it's easy for people to both remember it and then look for it later on when they go home and become a fan of your work. Even if it's not you playing that live set, somebody else might be playing your track. You can still, if you do it very, very well, create a track that is so easy to find on the internet that people who have never heard your works before can just find it and become a fan of you. And that's one way to kind of grow your fan base organically and even without much work, if you just put in the time to execute that well in the production phase. So I hope that this is a tip that you can do something with. I know this video is running a little bit long, but still I hope this is something that you're interested in and that you can play around with, and I hope that it works well for you. If you're interested in all this production and all you see here, be sure to go down in the description and follow me on Twitch, where I do live streams. You can go ahead and ask me questions there and do whatever. Also for this project, there won't be any files. So what I've been doing is you can become a member of the channel and then you get preset files and stuff like that. Unfortunately for this project, there isn't really anything to share. It's more of a concept. So I'm not going to give away any of the files here. If you are interested in files and like presets and stuff like that, you can join the channel to become a member for $5 a month. That's an easy way to support me. Another way to support me is to like this video and to subscribe if you're new here. And I hope to see you next time. So bye-bye.